here's what it was today. Bad news as far as the defensive injuries are concerned. This is not going to sound great to people, but TJ Edwards did not practice today because of a hamstring. Kyler Gordon, hammy, did not practice today. Grady Jarrett, no participation out in the Bears practice today because of his knee. Jalen Johnson, we knew because, he was on the Spiegel Holmes Show. We knew that he was not going to be out here. Nothing. Ben Johnson did not reveal anything more about Jalen Johnson. So what we know is that he's probably going to be out for the season, but with a hamstring injury, by the way. Jalen Jones also did not practice for the Bears today, which, again, not good because he's part of that secondary for the Chicago Bears. Let's get to who was here today, who was talking, what was going on after the Bears gave up 52 and were embarrassed in Detroit. Ben Johnson, the Bears head coach, questioning his team's effort against Detroit and their effort in practice.
You volunteered on Monday that there were some things on tape offensively away from the ball that displeased you. What were some of the specifics of the things?
Yeah, there were things all over the tape on all three phases that we're looking to clean up. And I thought as a whole that team, they played a little bit harder than us. And that's a reflection of me as a coach. That's a reflection of our coaching staff, and it's a reflection of our players too. When you play a good team like that on the road, that you gotta be all out and every single snap, and that just was not the case. So specifically, it was everybody.
Are there guys that need to practice better too?
I think our practice habits are yet to reflect the championship caliber team.
That is pretty damning all the way around. How did you read? Like, how did the room read that when you got that raw of an answer from Ben?
Well, that's a great question, Lawrence, because I asked the question, and it's a quick, concise answer, which will catch reporters off, caught me off guard, because the follow-up there obviously would have been, that what specifically are you talking about? The follow-up did come later on with the media, and he said, as far as the defense is concerned, he said, guys got to go to the football, and you have to finish hard. That's what he said about the defense. Offensively, Johnson said he stresses fundamentals and finish, and you need to show up in practice, and he made a big deal about showing up in the walkthrough as well, which obviously, the walkthroughs come late in the week. It's something that maybe players, we don't get to see the walkthrough, but one could suspect that maybe guys take that a little bit too casually. Maybe they're not as serious, but Ben Johnson wants them to take it seriously. And shout out to Matt Zahn from Channel 2, who did eventually ask the follow-up for the more specifics. So Ben Johnson is kind of comporting himself a little bit differently this week, guys, I think, based on the embarrassment of the Detroit game, even though they didn't make a big deal out of it in terms of, how wreckful that game was. Wreckful? But he did say today that, that they have to practice harder and be better in every single aspect.
And because we're 2 games into his first regular season leading the Bears, I feel like we're very much still in the getting to know you phase with Ben Johnson. And he was a guy who was very obvious to all you guys who were there on a regular basis during training camp that training camp practices were more demanding. There was more volume to the coaching staff. And now that we're a couple of games into the year, and it still doesn't seem like the enhanced results of player focus, player effort are not where it seems like they should be. What's your sense for the tone then that Ben Johnson is striking in light of that?
I love the tone that he is striking because typically, with his predecessors, I would say, we don't typically get that kind of honesty in terms of he is telling us that he's given these guys a kick in the butt, that things are not okay right now. And look, we've all sort of danced around it. Like when you lose like they did to the Lions, like we're all afraid to say it, but the effort is not there. And we all come close because there's nothing more damning than that. And Big Ant, you could probably speak to it better. I don't know if there is anything more damning in any sport if you are saying that there's not enough effort out there. And guess what? That's damning on the coaching staff as well. I mean, there's maybe the biggest indictment, and they said that Ben Johnson said he and the coaching staff obviously have not done enough to get these guys motivated? Or, as he said, practice like that you're a championship team? And maybe that's hard to get through the heads of some of these guys who have been losing forever with the Bears and endured a 10-game losing streak. It takes more than an off-season program, a training camp, and 2 games to undo all what was the Chicago Bears from, we'll just keep it at last year.
We were just having a conversation with Ed Werder about the Matt Eberflus experience down in Dallas. Was there any talk of Matt Eberflus today?
There was talk with Ben Johnson. There was talk with some of the players, and I'll highlight some of that. But I do want you to hear what Ben Johnson said. Ben Johnson, he says that he was asked. Matt Eberflus knows Caleb Williams' habits inside and out. So Ben, what do you say about that?
Yeah, well, we've got guys in the building that know how his mind works, and so we had some information on schematically how he liked to approach my offense in general and his feelings on Caleb. So I feel like we know what he knows, and we'll be just fine there.
Okay, I actually I was thinking about it as the game was going on last week, that the idea of like intimate knowledge of some of the stuff, I think sometimes can get in the way of looking at the team that you're playing this week. And there was a part of me that while I was watching the Bears versus Detroit, I'm going, yeah, Ben, I guess, did say some things to DA about Jared Goff, and I wonder if it would have been better had he not. Had he just let DA just go, here's what the film says I should do. I'm going to do that instead. It also would have helped if they had a pass rush.
Yeah, right.
But I often wonder if familiarity sometimes breeds contempt in that way, and that maybe you should just go, use this or not. Don't feel obligated to use any of this stuff. Do what you feel is right. Here are a couple of notes instead of being like, I know this guy and I know how to take care of him. Just a thought from me, Grote.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. And yeah, I think in this case, I feel like that they are taking a lot of that in. I mean, I felt like Ben Johnson, that was a pretty genuine answer from him in that case. And he did say before that, about playing all of what he said, that he has a lot of respect for Matt Eberflus as a defensive coordinator. He said that he game planned really well, he said, against Detroit. Well, Ben, in his days as a defensive coordinator and his days with the Chicago Bears where he was running the defense. So he did give the sort of obligatory respect to Matt Eberflus as well. We'll hear from Caleb a little bit later on Matt Eberflus, and I'll tell you what some of the other players said as well. But that's just a little taste there from Ben Johnson.
Oh, there's a story going around, and a lot of people are talking about it. We talked about it on the show yesterday. The idea of there being a conflict of interest with Tom Brady being an owner and an analyst. He is going to be on the call for Bears Cowboys this weekend, and then the Bears go to Las Vegas. By the way, you can hang out with us at Circa. We're going to be there for that weekend in Las Vegas, circalasvegas.com if you want to get yourself a room. It'd be fun. But there's a conflict of interest that has been discussed league-wide. Tom has tried to downplay it, and it sounds like Ben Johnson kind of downplayed it too.
Yeah, he did, and he had the townspeople, that's us, laughing a little bit today. He was asked, as you said, Lawrence, about Raiders minority owner Tom Brady announcing the Bears Cowboys this week, and then the Bears at Brady's Raiders next week. Here's Ben Johnson.
Are you going to do that pre-production meeting, and do you have to be careful kind of how much you divulge?
I mean, I've been careful everything I've said since the season started. I've been in pure coach speak mode since it started. So to me, it's just business as usual. I'm just fine. I like Tom, and we have a really good relationship. So
How do you reconcile the conflict of interest that exists with the whole situation?
yeah, like I said, I'm really not worried about it. I mean, we change week to week in terms of what we do. Schematically, he's going to be able to turn on the tape and see what everyone else in the world's seeing right now. Personnel-wise, really the same thing. It's not like I'm going to sit down with him and tell, hey, don't do this to Caleb Williams or you might get it. Like, I'm not going to. There's not going to be any trade secrets that are going to be exchanged. But I really don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest with you.
I think Ben is being understandably respectful of one of the greatest players of all time and the face of the NFL on Fox at the moment. And perhaps he's just like, I got bigger fish to fry right now, so I'm not going to communicate very differently with Tom than I do with anybody else. But like Stacey Dales had some really strong and I thought, really cogent thoughts on the topic with Mully and Haugh, and you guys have been talking about it for a couple of days here. If nothing else, it shouldn't be something that should have to be worried about in a production meeting, preparing for a broadcast or coaches and players there. Do you feel, Grotes, like Ben Johnson was being genuine, like he legitimately doesn't have much concern over it?
Well, I think you nailed it when you said, because that's exactly what I was thinking of when he was talking. There's just a respect that these players have to have for Tom Brady, and I would even use the word fear. Who's
that's a great word.
Right? I mean, these guys are afraid, like the players and the coaches, and to some degree, you get it. Tom Brady is a man with a ton of power. He has a microphone in his hand, $350 million from Fox Network. He is, as we said, a minority owner of the Raiders. He is revered and loved and one of the most competitive people that has ever played the game of football. So I think that's Ben Johnson showing respect, and I guess I would say the proper amount of fear.
Yeah, and I don't like that people inside of football are acting like this is not a conflict of interest. It is. It's seriously a conflict of interest. And any of us that have been a part of production meetings with teams know that there are a lot of things that are divulged to a broadcast crew. Yes. And you can a trick play happens and the analysts will be like, yeah, they worked on that Friday night. And they know a lot of stuff. So if he's keeping it super vanilla, I'm good with it. This is above Ben Johnson. This is a league problem that it seemed like they had in check last year, but it seems like they don't care that much this year. And I think that Grote is on it. There is a level of fear, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem, which is why you point out some of these conflicts of interest. Why don't we give Ben one more before we have to take a timeout? We haven't talked about the Bears quarterback, and we will in the next segment. What about the Cowboys quarterback?
Yeah, well, Ben Johnson in his intro, without having been prompted with any questions, said that Dak Prescott is playing some of the best football in the NFL right now. 2 games, obviously played awesome in that last game. I mean, he was 38 of 52, 361 yards and 2 TDs. He threw for 188 in the first game, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks in that first game for Dak Prescott. But I got back to that, and I asked Ben Johnson, why do you think he is playing so well right now?
Man, when I see a quarterback utilize cadence the way that he does, and I know that's a little thing, but it's reflective of he's got total control of the field. He's looking to manipulate the defense. He's looking to control them. Hopefully we'll have a loud crowd here on Sunday that combats his ability to use that cadence to our disadvantage. But when I see that on tape, I know, like, this is a guy that's seeing the field really well right now, and he's trying to move defenders around. And I think that's when you have an experienced player like that, that's a dangerous thing.
The danger in that is right now Dak Prescott is accustomed to just being in score fests and having games where you're trading touchdowns with the opponent over and over again. Do you get the sense that Ben Johnson is himself concerned about that? Because right now I don't know that the Bears are situated to just go score for score with a player playing as well as Dak Prescott.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. But also what I got out of that, I'm listening to that, and I'm like, oh, cadence and seeing the entire field and using your eyes, like, that is stuff that he wants. We know what he values, and this is what he wants for Caleb Williams. And, Lawrence, I know you got to take a break here, but when we come back, we will hear from Caleb Williams on that very topic, him using his eyes, and Caleb will get specific on that very topic. Before the break, we had just heard from Ben Johnson talking about how much he loved Dak Prescott, who just seems to own the field, as he said, and using his eyes well and all that kind of stuff, manipulating defenders. Let's listen to Caleb Williams on how he's doing on things like that, specifically with getting the level of vision to the right place for Caleb Williams on the field.
It's something that we talk about, something that it's a part of progressing in football and growing more in this league is being able to, obviously you see guys like Matthew that's done it for, how many ever years he's done it, and being able to just know where people are and being able to either keep them where they are to be able to deliver the ball or move them and be able to deliver the ball behind them. And so there was a few times, last game that happened. The first game, actually, we were practicing those things. I ended up missing those two passes that we all talked about. But other than that, it's just something in little nuggets that Ben gives me throughout the week, and whether it's the concept or just that singular play, it's something that we talk about and discuss throughout the week, and using my eyes and being able to move wherever I want and move the defenders wherever I want.
That's what you were talking about with Dak, where Dak does eye manipulation, Big Ant, where he's able to sometimes dictate what a defense thinks they're seeing.
The eye discipline from a quarterback where you can move defenders with your eyes. That's kind of a next level of quarterbacking where you can force defenders to think one thing or see one thing when you can tell the entire time that you're going somewhere else with the football. And to have the comfort to do that and the knowledge of system to do that, it takes a little minute to grow in that direction. And Grote, when you hear Caleb talking in that way, and just really even overall, because he was better in week 2 than week 1. He wasn't even awful in week 1, but he was certainly better in the second game. The tone that you guys hear from him this week after the week 2 performance in the scope of the team itself being awful, what did you kind of take away from Caleb's energy and just talking about his individual performance?
Yeah, and we did talk to him, Big Ant, about like what improvements that he saw in himself. And I will say that the reason I'm not playing that is because he generalized a lot. He said that everything got a little bit better. But I think the biggest thing that if you really want to simplify it, he just seemed even from week 1 to week 2, he seemed more decisive, more confident in where he wanted to go with the football. We know he had the one bad interception where he was terrific at eluding the pressure. I thought he was kind of caught in between on that play, wanting to make the special play and also throw it out of bounds. So it's sort of like his brain and his arm were not in sync on that particular play. But, I think, we're going to zero in much more on Caleb as the weeks go on. But when the defense gives up 52, as I like to say, we kind of all gave the quarterback a break for the week. But, I thought he did look more decisive in game 2.
And when I came on for post, I didn't even really talk about Caleb in the post show after the game on Sunday, just because there were so many other obviously glaring issues that the Bears have, where if you get a competent performance from the QB, and we're 2 games in, for him just stacking decent play, quality play, and hopefully building off of it, I think that's fair and reasonable when the offensive line can't move somebody, when the defense is giving up 50-plus points. And so I completely agree with just that tone and that approach for right now. But in the scope of the Bears' passing attack, when they got these early draft picks like Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, who aren't seeing the field that much, aren't seeing the rock hardly at all, what did Caleb say about that, especially with the tight end position?
Yeah, Cole Kmet, 2 targets. Anthony Colston Loveland, 1 target, did not have a catch in the game. And just to give you a little background, we're going to hear from Caleb right now, but Ben Johnson said that the lack of tight end usage is on him, as in on Ben Johnson. But here's what Caleb Williams says about that.
We had a few passes today, and just kind of be on the same page with those guys. I feel that way. I believe they feel that way, and being able to go out there and execute plays and deliver them a good ball and let them go and work. I know the first game, I missed one to Colston across the middle, but I think over the time from OTA's training camp and now, I think our connection has grown, and I think we're on the same page and have the same idea of where I think they should be and where they will be.
So here's the thing. I didn't look for it in the Detroit game because there's not a lot to look for in that Detroit game. But in the Vikings game, I did pay attention to Colston Loveland quite a bit. And he was not running his routes with the efficiency of which I was hoping. And here's what I mean. There was a sideline route to him where there was a route that he ran on the sidelines where if you looked at the still, you'd be like, why didn't Caleb throw him the ball? Well, the reason is because Caleb got to the top of his drop, and Colston hadn't even come close to making his break. And so if you're Caleb and you're looking over there, you're like, no, he's not prepared to receive the pass. I wonder if that's one of the things that's going on here, where it's not just being on the same page, but also practice speed versus play speed. And are you where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there?
And again, to the point I was making earlier, Gross, we were talking about Tyler Warren, and I was out at Colts camp, and the Colts were ecstatic about Warren falling to them and everything else. And Colston Loveland, there's more projection in the evaluation just for what he can become as a tight end. And similar to Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta didn't get a whole bunch of targets while he was at Iowa because Iowa's passing offense during his final year there was moribund at best, just like Michigan's passing offense was last season while Colston Loveland was there. So he hasn't necessarily been tasked with being a precise and consistent route runner to the volume that some of these other guys have. So as much as the development of Caleb is under the microscope, but you wonder about some of these young pass catchers and their development and where it really sits.
Great usage of moribund. First of all, that was awesome. And then I will say, you're spot on, and what Lawrence said too about practice speed. Like when I saw Colston Loveland out here in training camp, I was like, okay, I see what everybody's talking about. He does look different. He does move differently. And this is just and this is going to be part to blame for a lot of these guys, like Luther Burden, and maybe even if Ozzie Trapillo is ever active again. Like it.
If it ever happens again.
Yeah, I don't know if that was necessary on my part, but it's there. I said it. Practice is different. Training camp is different. The preseason is different. And we all know that. But I think sometimes we could find specific examples. The other thing is, and I said this so many times that I think I was exhausting Dan Weeder on the Take the North podcast because I've seen it enough in my career covering the Bears that when rookies miss the off-season program, I know they were there for camp, for most of camp anyway, but when guys like Colston Loveland and Luther Burden are not available for those first few weeks and what they're doing and what they're implementing, I've seen so many players fall behind because of that. Doesn't happen to everybody. Like Roquan Smith is a good example. Roquan Smith, his first NFL action was in a game, and it was a sack, and we know how good Roquan was. But more times than not, when rookies miss the off-season program, they fall behind, and I think that's to some degree what's going on here with those guys.
Is Caleb excited to see Flus?
Well, it's such a great question because I think we all have a little bit of an idea of how Caleb feels about the previous coaching staff. But here's how Caleb Williams answered the question about Matt Eberflus.
How do you feel about the time that you had with Matt Eberflus?
Yeah, it was great. I think
No, it wasn't.
I think we're at the point where we're past that, but it was good. Obviously, being able to become a Chicago Bear, he made that decision. Obviously, everybody else was in here and being able to make that decision, making me a Chicago Bear. So happy to be here, and our time together wasn't wasted. Obviously,
yes,
we didn't win as much as we wanted, but we're past that, and we're focused on trying to be 1-0 this week.
Sorry, I was the interjection there. I don't want anyone to think that Caleb was being his own ombudsman. But no,
it's Caleb's internal monologue.
Yeah, I'm going to act as his anger translator, Luther,
right, yeah.
and tell you that is not how he felt about what happened last year with Matt Eberflus. But I appreciate him at least trying to be nice and being a professional.
How do you feel about the time that you had with Matt Eberflus?
Yeah, it was great.
No,
the lie detector test determined that was a lie.
That's right, Maury.
Anywho.
That's right. Maury knows. Let's just move right along off of that one. I'm curious because, look, I had Tyreek Stevenson as my breakout player this year. I figured with Dennis Allen's defense and Jalen Johnson being on the other side, that Tyreek Stevenson could have a big year. I wonder now if Tyreek Stevenson is in danger of being cut.
But to put who in his place, though?
Yeah, that's the only
I think
problem.
that's always the difficult thing. Like, oh, this guy messed up. He shouldn't be here. They got to put somebody on the field.
I'm not saying it because he's messed up in games.
Yeah.
I'm saying it because there seems to be a he doesn't get it theme that has gone through since last week 5. That there seems to be a thing with him where he doesn't get it, and then on top of it, you're not playing as well as people expect you to play. So I'm curious to hear, what did Tyreek have to say about what happened on Sunday?
I do have evidence, Lawrence, to suggest that Tyreek Stevenson knows he had a bad game in Detroit. Here it is.
What I put on tape was definitely not who I am or my standards or this team standards. So best thing I can do is put my head down, have a short memory, and come back out and put who I am and what I stand for on display.
You said that's not you, but then what was going on in that game?
Every play ain't gonna be perfect. Every game ain't gonna be perfect. The best thing I could try to do is make sure that my technique, my standards show up every play. And just happened this game that more plays than I would like. My standard and my technique was there, and it just got exposed. That's all that it is. It's the game of football, and I play one of the hardest positions on the field. The best thing I could do is have keep my confidence, next play mentality, and come out and get ready for this game.
You said those South Florida guys are tough. They get over stuff fast. Why? What is it about South Florida?
We dogs. That's it. I can't give you no other explanation other than that. We dogs. We come from the bottom. So the only thing we could do is go to the top.
Okay, so let me further explain about this thing, because I want Tyreek Stevenson to be good.
Yeah,
I've in some ways staked my reputation. I did a whole pod on House of L about how it should work. But here's the reason why I think that he could be a candidate for this. One, you have a head coach that is upset about the way things have gone, and a general manager that might need an example. That might need to be like, hey, guys, Ben's really serious, and here's how serious he is. I'm going to cut one of my own dudes that I brought in here. Then you go back to last year and the Washington thing. Fine. He had a lapse in judgment. I'll give grace. Young player trying to figure some stuff out. The next week, I was actually in Arizona. I was in the press conference with him the next week after he had been benched, and then maybe wasn't at practice after he got benched, and then didn't quite know what was going on, and then they have that collapse. The week after that, the game against the Patriots, he was targeted. He was targeted for being over-aggressive, and they got him twice for peeking in the backfield, and then a team that wasn't very good destroyed the Bears at home. And then you go all the way to here, where there's an opportunity for him to really succeed. And so far, in 2 games, you haven't seen it. So it's not just he had a bad game on Sunday. For me, there's a list of evidence against him that goes, if I wanted to make a statement, if I wanted to let people in this locker room know how serious I am about winning, he would be a candidate for that. Jaquan might also be a candidate for that. Just a thought.
Right. It's just legitimately needs to be at a position where you actually have at least a decent option to put in there. And the Bears have went from their secondary being remarkably deep to now it looks like their secondary is a mash unit. Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, even the healthy guys not making plays. Jaquan Brisker being on social media and the safety position not performing up to snuff. So there's a lot on the back end that, especially 2 games in, if right now the mission is we got to develop good habits, we got to boost each other up, we got to hold each other accountable, and we have to be better than getting rid of Tyreek Stevenson anytime soon, that doesn't feel like something that automatically makes you better.
Fair enough. I just thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah.
Nuggets and tidbits.
You guys got time for one more cut, or you got to go? Because I got Dolman here. If you don't have time,
let's do
short
it.
Yardage.
Let's hear about short yardage.
Yeah, because it was like really offensively, the most indictable thing was the 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 QB sneaks that didn't work out. Drew Dolman also had a key hold on that second quarter drive that led to a 2nd and 32. So I pulled up at Drew Dolman's locker, and we talked about not being able to get that 1 yard.
I probably won't get into like any scheme details just because that's probably important for us in the future. I mean, as an O-line in those situations, more movement always helps.
And first and foremost, after a game like that, we need to look at ourselves and see what we can do better individually and as a position group, as an offense, as a team, all those things.
How bothersome is that to an offensive lineman when you can't get that 1 yard?
Yeah, there's certainly like a personal pride aspect, but yeah, more just critical point in the game that really would have helped us out as a team, and so that's more the focus. Going forward, we need to have the ability to do that, and we will. So.
Where is the offensive line 2 games through in terms of getting to a spot where chemistry is at a really high level?
It's definitely a moving target. Like as the year goes, you should continue to improve and continue to develop. So there won't be like a point where we pass like a critical threshold, where it's like we're now fully like cohesive. It's like
chemistry has occurred.
Yeah, it's like we should continue to improve constantly, and we should never feel like like now we're good, now we don't need to work on it anymore. So I think it'll just continue to improve, and it'll be something we put emphasis on for as long as we're playing football. So
how do you avoid the pre-snap penalties? Is that a work in progress as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it takes intentional effort from us, which we are putting forth. It's something that we need to improve on, and we will improve on, but it'll only improve as we direct our focus and attention to it and work on eliminating them.
Fair enough. I like hearing that. Grotes, we don't have time for nuggets and tidbits. We made a choice.
It's all good.
And we stand by it. Thank you for an excellent Bears report as per usual.
Bye, guys.